Hi, friends. Welcome back to today's episode of the Life with Loverly podcast.
Hi.
What's up?
Nothing much, man. I am looking at the clock going, okay, I got 7 hours till
So you're going to be real productive today is what I'm hearing.
I woke up this morning and I was like, it's always the day before vacation and you're like, how am I going to get through today? We're going to bust some stuff out, man.
Yeah. Well, thankfully, we have a lot to do. So
we do. We have a packed
keep your
schedule.
mind occupied.
Exactly.
I feel like there was something I was going to text you about last night. And then I was like, no, she's preparing for vacation. Like, this is not important. I was just trying to be like, I know she's cleaning and packing and getting like their house ready.
Yeah. When I texted about the blog post, I was like, that was the first time I looked at my phone since I'd gotten home. So yeah, I was a little busy. You have a little celebration going on this weekend.
I do, you guys. Hazel is turning 3. This is insane.
I know. Felt like yesterday she was crawling when I met her.
I know. She wasn't even crawling yet when you
Actually,
met her.
No, she wasn't.
She was only like 8 or 9 months old or something like that. She was
That's
like still a
true.
baby.
Yeah.
Yeah. I took her into school this morning and they had this big sign on the door that said her name and that her birthday was this weekend.
Oh.
And so I opened up the door and all of her little friends were like, "Happy birthday, Hazel."
That's so sweet.
Yeah. On the other hand, Collins was crying this morning because she didn't want Hazel to have her birthday. And I was like, is this out of because you're being sweet, you don't want Hazel to get older, or you just don't want her to have a party?
It's not my birthday.
You want to have a party.
Yes.
So we're going to work through that today.
Right. That's so cute. I'm so excited for today's episode.
I know. We are going to do a little advice column.
This is going to be fun. I was very excited to kind of see some of the questions come through. I think at first people were like, oh, well, I need advice on this. And it was like, okay, it's hard to talk through it because it's a very Instagram question. But there were some really good ones that came through because we were thinking Carrie Bradshaw vibes, you know, the advice column.
A little bit more in depth.
Yeah.
And some of these questions I feel are, we can get deep in them. There's a few that are really deep, and I feel like we need to put a disclaimer that you is just our opinions.
Yes,
you don't have to take
we are not
this
professionals, guys. Okay,
we're just gonna discuss through what we would do or what we kind of want to make this. I feel like you're talking to your best friend.
Yeah.
Just hey, here's an issue. What should I do? We're gonna talk through it like that.
Absolutely.
So take it with a grain of salt.
For sure.
But I think it's going to be fun. Let's get into it.
Awesome. So these first two questions kind of go hand in hand, and I thought that they were kind of relevant to back each other up. The first one was on marriage. What do you do to help maintain a healthy marriage? And then the next one was recommendations for date night or quality time together.
Well, I feel the first thing is communication.
For sure.
Open communication. If something is bothering you, have a discussion. I remember when I was growing up, I felt like my parents had such a great relationship, and I feel I never saw them have an argument, which I feel had its pros and cons because I put them on such a high pedestal, thinking their life was perfect. And then once I got older and could have some of these conversations with my mom, she was like, no, we just always chose to have our arguments behind closed doors, so
great.
that we could figure it out without it being in front of other people or in front of you guys. And she was like, it wasn't always pretty. We definitely had times where it wasn't great, but having the conversation, even when you don't want to.
Yeah.
That was always something that really stuck with me. And it's interesting because Chris is not a big talk about your feelings or talk
most men I don't think are.
No.
Yeah.
But I feel I've really had to be okay, we have to figure this out. We're not going to tiptoe around. I'm not I don't want to end up.
We need resolution.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's always kind of my main thing, I think, is communication.
Yeah. And I think with, your parents, them waiting till they were behind closed doors probably was so helpful too, to help process it before they actually had the conversation. That's one thing I've learned about myself just in the relationship. Okay, I've been married 19 years, but I've also been with Robert since I was 17.
Yeah.
So I've gone through many stages of life alongside him that my communication, I guess, style has changed over the years, and so has his. And having that time to really kind of process before you have like an argument or a disagreement. Okay, let's process how we're going to approach this from a better perspective, maybe even more of a calm, perspective. I think that's a really great thing to keep in mind.
Yeah. I'll never forget, we were like in a group with my parents and some of their friends, and I was like probably like in between like 12 or 14. Mm-hmm. And there was something that was said that like my mom didn't agree with, and my dad was kind of like wanting to start like having a discussion, and we were in front of a lot of other people. And my mom just looked at him and was like, I want to continue this conversation, but now is not the place. Mm-hmm. We can talk about this later. And that just like silenced my dad. But like the other adults were just like, whoa, like, that just saved everybody from like watching like a fight break out.
Yeah.
And I was just kind of like, wow, like that really, I don't know. Another thing I would say too is like some type of counseling.
Yeah.
Is like, we haven't done counseling since we've been married, but there's been times within like the last year that I've been like, I really feel like there's so many benefits to it.
Because we're doing it individually, and we're like, we should just like be in a room and have that person that could be the outside, just ear or advice, just taking it in that's unbiased.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We did premarital counseling, and I feel like I loved that setup of just like having these discussions, but somebody else was kind of like able to moderate, and facilitate like, well, how does that make you feel?
Yeah.
Because sometimes if you're in the middle of like a hard conversation with your spouse, you're not going to stop and be like, how does this make you feel? Like, let me remove myself from the situation. And
let's light the fire even more.
Right. It's like, ugh.
Yeah.
So I feel like for some reason, it kind of feels like if you go to counseling, it's like, oh no, like things are not good.
Right. And I know that's how like that was looked at whenever we were bringing it up. It was like, well, we're not in that kind of place. No, but like also this person can help us kind of work through some of these disagreements that we have on a consistent basis,
Right. Or figure out how to like not have those.
Exactly.
Because if we're both like treating each other and doing things that, are skills that they will teach us.
Yeah.
I'm just kind of like, well, this feels like really beneficial.
I know. I think my biggest piece of advice is because I was so young in the beginning of our relationship, we just didn't fight. There was no disagreements. It was very like happy for 4 or 5, possibly even 6 years. And so when the first disagreement broke out, it was like, are we okay? Like why is this happening? Yeah. That's normal to disagree with each other. You're going to not think the same. You're not going to have the same thoughts or beliefs about every single thing in life. There were things that came up about politics. There were things that came up about just like how to raise kids. Right. So many things came up that it was like, okay, we have to navigate through that and figure out like how we're going to meet in the middle.
Right. Yeah, it's tough. I mean, but it's something I feel like you really have to work at.
Yes.
And like have to, I don't know, like to me, I'm just like, there's not an option for failure here.
No.
Like
you have to choose to want to work for it.
Right.
Yeah.
And if you show up like that every day, I'm like, I feel like that's going to send you in the right direction.
Exactly.
A follow-up question was like recommendations for date night and quality time, which I think that really helps keep your marriage like alive.
We just recently got back to that in the last year and a half, and it was like no exceptions. We have date night every week, and it didn't mean we had to leave the house, but it was, the girls would go upstairs and like do their own thing, and we would watch movie together and sit on the sofa together, and have popcorn and like be intentional about like having conversation, or it was going out and having a date night, because we didn't do that for many years because I was a very young mom, and
And I feel like y'all's work schedules were all over the place.
Yeah, we were like ship sailing in the night.
Yeah.
He was working the opposite of what I was working. So when life got to a point where we were like, we gotta make time for us again. Like, it's not all only about the kids anymore. It's about us too.
Yeah.
So it was fun to be able to go out and just like have a conversation across the table, you know, and enjoy, you know, having just a drink, and we didn't have to worry about getting out of the restaurant at a certain time.
Right.
Yeah.
No, like, crazy meltdowns.
Seriously. Yeah.
I know. It's funny because we try to do the same, like go on weekly date nights or just like whatever. But it feels like if it's been like 2 weeks in a row that maybe we haven't, I feel like at some point in the week, I'm just like, gosh, like we haven't even had like a real conversation.
You
like
feel it.
We need to like get out and have a discussion and just like get back on the same page.
Yes.
Yeah, but I love a good date night.
Agree.
We've been playing not a lot, but we've been playing golf together and then like doing dinner after. That's been really fun. And it's been cool to see, like, Chris is actually really good at golf.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't realize he was like actually very good.
Yeah.
And so he's like teaching me, but he's such a great teacher.
Oh, that's
like
great.
he loves to be like, okay, here, like, let me show you how to do this, or no, move your foot back. But he like talks you through it really well. Like, he was a lacrosse coach for high school when we first started dating and were married. And I'm like, you really need to go back into coaching because he just explains things really well.
Yeah.
He like wants you to try it, but he's not going to let you fail without, like, I don't know. So that's been kind of fun, which is interesting in like sometimes I'm like, I got this. Like, I don't need your help.
Yeah.
You know? And so for him to just be like, okay, but like, if you want my help,
Right.
this is the right way to do that. But that's been like a fun thing we've been doing this summer. And I'm like, maybe I'll just become a golfer.
Love that. Love that.
Add to my list of, crazy responsibilities through the day.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so next question. How to maintain/make friends in your 30s? I feel like this is a tough one.
It is. I don't know that I have a great answer for that. I know what I've learned over the years. I personally have always put work first, and that really dwindled down on a lot of the friendships that I had over the years. But making sure, like my friend and I make sure that we schedule a date. Mm-hmm. We are busy people, and it feels like at first I was like, that's so sad we have to schedule it, but it makes it work. Mm-hmm. Instead of like, oh, well, this weekend's not going to work, let's just do next weekend, and then keep pushing it off. It's like, it's going in the calendar. Yeah. And if it's on my calendar at this time, this is what we're going to do. And we find something new to do every time. And it's fun. So I think that if you are struggling to maintain friendships, make it happen. Make time for it if it's important to you.
Yeah, I agree. And I think I feel like having friendships right now, it's like you want the friendships that are like life-giving.
Yes.
You know, that you feel like there's a value add. Mm-hmm. Like, I went to lunch with a friend the other day, and she texted me after, because we'd kind of been like, we really want to get together. And then I finally was like, listen, like, let's just go to lunch. And she was like, thank you so much for like pursuing the like friendship by asking me to go to lunch. Like, that really means a lot that because we text all the time, or we talk, or our kids are playing, but there's something about like adult one-on-one time.
Yeah.
I also think like FaceTiming, mm-hmm. or just like, if you think about your friend, like send a text message.
Yes.
And that can kind of like keep you guys going.
Agree.
'Cause there's so many times I think about my best friend Molly, who lives in Atlanta. I don't see like very often. And I'm just like, gosh, wonder what she's doing. Like, hope she's having a good day. And then I like start doing something else. I'm like, that would have been a great time to just be like, hey, thinking about you, love you. Yes. Like, what's going on? How's the pup? Like, and even if she sends like one text back, but then like we'll go weeks without talking, but I've thought about her so many times, I could have just said like, hey, how are you?
Exactly.
So
letting each other know that you're thinking about them.
Yeah.
I love the FaceTime one because my friend Hannah and I will do that every now and then. Like, I'll be in the car and I'm like, I wonder what she's doing. And Just call her.
Right.
And it's so nice to be able to just see her face.
Yeah.
You know, it's very different than like just a text message or a voice memo or whatever.
I know. I'm very excited to soon be living next to my best friend.
Yes. Yes.
I know we always talk about how I'm like, we're just going to be in this like little bubble.
Yes.
Like, but thankfully she's like super outgoing and is always like, she always has people coming over and stuff like that. So I think there was another question that was sort of similar about like connecting with friends or if you move to a new city. Mm-hmm. So we moved back to Athens 3 years ago. And I feel like I had like one or two like good friends from just like growing up.
Yeah.
And I was sort of like, how am I going to meet new people? Like I have young kids, I have a demanding career. I just, I don't really want to put myself out there to like strangers to like go meet up and have like a play date. But like sometimes you have to put yourself out there.
You do.
Especially in a new city. I need to find this blog post and maybe we can include it in the show notes. But my friend Kathleen Barnes, she's also an influencer and she lives here in Athens now. But previously she lived in California and moved around in California for her husband's was like doing medical school and residency and all the things. And she wrote this awesome blog post about like how to find friends like when you move to a new city, and it was just like a few bullet points, and I remember reading it being like, oh my gosh, like I'm the problem, like I'm not putting myself out there, I'm not attempting, I'm just sitting here being like, I want a new friend, like how come nobody like wants to hang out with me? And it's like, does anybody even know that I'm here? So there were so many great tips in it. So we'll find that and put it in the show notes for you guys if you're maybe moving. This would be like a great like resource, and Kathleen's a great follow too on Instagram. I think her Instagram is just Kathleen_Barnes. But she's a great friend and like person to follow, and she's moved a lot. And so I'm like, okay, like, this is advice coming from somebody who's been in this situation.
Force yourself to like sign up for something that you're going to enjoy. So people are going to be there with that same passion. So I don't know, a yoga class, an art class, just something that you can get yourself out there, church, and making sure that you're in a class when you go. Like I'm sure that there are certain activities that churches will hold, and make sure you go to those if that's something that you're passionate about. And you're going to find like-minded people who you're probably going to have something in common with.
Totally. I mean, I think about even people who like say they like met some of their friends like and close friends on the playground, like their kids are playing, because I mean, your kids are just buddies with whoever's like willing to play with them. And, so I think it's just kind of like being open, but also like protecting yourself. Like you just like at the end of the day, I feel like you do have to protect like who you are as a person and like what you're really needing. You don't want to like become friends with somebody who's going to like suck the life out of you.
No, I think for me personally, that's why I have my little baby circle, because that's what works for me. I don't know that I could manage 15 friends at all time, because that's not the lifestyle that I lead, and I'm okay with that.
Right.
Some people that may be how they thrive, but I am a very specific person, and I need friends who are going to meet those specific needs. And I think that's why friendships have dwindled over the years, because they don't bring me joy.
Yeah.
Totally.
So,
So a follower has a hard relationship with their sister-in-law, and she feels like this person likes to stir the pot a little bit. She's wanting to know if they need to be friends.
I mean, that's kind of tough, because I guess I feel like I have some follow-up questions. Like, do you live in the same town? How close, like, are your families?
I feel like I remember this question too, and the sister-in-law was like the husband's brother's wife.
Okay.
So, but I don't remember anything else that was really said that was specific. I think that one thing that I have learned through therapy is boundaries. And you're allowed to have them.
Totally.
So if it's something that, again, if it's not a relationship that necessarily brings you joy, I don't feel like if you don't want to be friends with this person, you don't have to be friends, but you are family at the end of the day. So that's where, I mean, you be there for each other for their, like events and, special occasions and things like that. But I mean, nobody's forcing you to like hang out with this person.
I think it's like, if you are at the end of the day, still being like kind and nice. And like, even if she's not being that way to you, like, but you have these boundaries and you've kind of been like, this is just not something I need to thrive. I mean, you don't have to call and text them like all day, every day.
No.
But I think as long as like when you're in person with them, as long as like you're still like
being who you are.
Right.
Yeah.
Then that feels like that's probably the route I would go to if I was in this
with
situation.
anybody who stirs the pot. Like, you don't have to feed into it.
Right.
That's where you get to step back and be like, you know, I'm not really interested in having that conversation.
Yeah.
You know?
And like, I feel like that can definitely be hard. And especially if the person is like really wanting to like pull
people who are good at it will do it. Yeah.
Right. You kind of have to be strong, but you have to be okay with that.
Exactly.
And once you get to that point where you're like, this isn't my responsibility to like worry about them, I feel like that will kind of help you feel better about the situation.
Agree.
Okay, how do we rise above mean girls?
I think it's kind of goes along that same, you know, advice. You do not have to feed into that.
No.
I'm just going to be very honest. I have a group of women in my neighborhood that take up the pool every year. Okay. And they're known as like the mean girls of the neighborhood. And it makes me so sad. It makes me so sad because like that's a community place where you could go in and meet new friends, but I don't have to feed into that. So I will sit and I will have fun and I will enjoy my time. What they think doesn't matter. It doesn't make me who I am.
It's so tough with mean girls, especially like mean moms.
Yes.
And sometimes we see it like on people who send messages or DMs and stuff that are just so like off.
That's the majority of where we see it for sure. Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, you look at their Instagram bio and it's like raising 3 girls and I'm like,
Jesus. And,
this is like if this is what you're doing behind closed doors, like how are you raising your kids? Like it just, I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it
puts a fire in me to like not be that person.
For sure.
I'm like, I see how I feel on the other end. Like that is something I'm going to work very hard not to be and raise my children not to be. Like,
right.
It makes you feel gross on the other. Like,
there's
no need for that. So, you know, clearly they're working through something, and that's what you have to remember. People who are out there being mean, and especially behind a keyboard, you know, like they're working through something personally, and it's not necessarily you aren't the problem.
Right.
It's they're working through their own problems. And
if
you can separate yourself from that, that is huge. It's hard, but it is huge.
Yeah. I think just kind of like being very secure in like who you are as a person and like what your standards are. And if somebody around you or in your friend group is just like not where you're wanting to be, like then, and they're being mean. I mean, like, I just feel like I don't have a tolerance. Like if you're going to be mean, then like, that's like, I don't want to be around you.
Yeah. Agree.
But I mean, I know that it's there's a lot of like probably layers behind some of these questions.
There are a lot of layers, I'm sure. Yes. So hopefully this is helping a little bit just from an outside perspective.
Yeah.
So this person wanted advice on feeling stuck at a job or just unsure of the future when it comes to their career. I feel like I've been there.
Yeah.
I know I've been there a lot.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's kind of like depending on, are you wanting to like move up and you feel like you can't? Are you wanting to leave your job and you feel like it's just not the right time? I think I would just really like almost make like a pros and cons list.
Yes.
And kind of be like, what's the pro of staying here? What's the pro of moving to a different career? Like, and then really like go through and see what makes the most sense for you. And kind of like, I mean, I would even write, like journal out some feelings that you're having and maybe circle back to those, like to see like, are you just mad at a situation that happened or do you think it's like time to go?
Yeah, I know. I had a job that I absolutely was so passionate about it for so many years. And I was on a really great growth path, that's what was important to me was growth. And when you start to feel stagnant in a job, there's no growth opportunities. I mean, you do get to this point where you're like, I feel stuck. you're not feeling fulfilled. And at the end of the day, I ended up leaving that job because of some situations that happened, but then I had resentment towards the whole thing.
Right.
And when I was able to kind of break it down, that was the first time in my career where I was like, it wasn't the job. It was like the situations that surrounded like that last year of me being there. But at the end of the day, I was like, I wasn't really passionate about it. I was passionate about the growth.
Yeah.
But I wasn't passionate about like the whole situation. So knowing that and really picking through, this is something I told you, I wanted a chance to be more creative. And I didn't have a creative outlet where I was. And that's what was holding me back.
Right.
So I hit a point where, I started therapy to try to break down those emotions and those feelings and everything. And I literally got to a point where things didn't feel like they were going my way. And I just started praying.
Yeah.
I literally just started praying because I was like, I need a change, because I ended back in a situation where I was in retail again, where I was like, I'm not happy.
Yeah.
My heart's not where it's supposed to be. And I know that about me now. And literally that's why we always say it was a God thing that we met each other. Cause I'm like, it had to be. It had to be, because there was nothing like put into action at that point other than like, I was just literally praying for change.
And I think that's another thing that is really cool about prayer is like, if you feel stuck, start praying, like have that conversation, just ask for clarity, for direction. Where do you want me? What do you see for me next? Can you show me what you see for me next?
Give me some kind of sign to let me know what the
Can
next.
I get a sign?
Literally, like show me what is next. What is the next step that I'm needing to take in order to get to where I want to be? And yeah.
I feel like a combination of all of that stuff can maybe just help you feel like, understand maybe like why you're feeling stuck, or why you're feeling unsure, or other doors could open. Like I don't know, but that like writing it out,
yes,
I feel like is a great place to start too.
For sure.
Okay, our next question is how to learn to ask for help because you like to be self-sufficient.
We know nothing about that.
Especially after having a baby. So, yeah.
So I learned from my first child that I did need to ask for help.
Yes.
I almost didn't want help because it was my first child. And I was like, I got this. Don't touch it. Like, I have her. It's fine. And, man, I needed help. I needed family and I wanted friends, because I feel like there are those months afterwards where you feel so lonely.
Yeah. Like even the before you, like in between the time of you had the baby, everybody wants to see the newborn baby. Everybody's like, they're helping you out. And then there's like this like lull. And then it's
everybody
like,
goes home.
Yeah. And then like you still have time maybe on maternity leave or something. Yeah. Like you don't, like you're still just trying to figure out your groove of like how to have a baby.
And it's like in that moment, it's not about you. It's like baby, baby, baby. And then you start to feel, I started to feel like I just lost myself. I was like, cause I have a baby attached to my boob at all times. And then I'm not even sleeping because I'm like, okay, the baby is like asleep, but is she okay? Are they breathing? Like, is everything okay? It's just literally, you get so wrapped up in that. So I pushed everyone away. I was like, that's fine. I'm fine. I don't need help. And second go around, I'm like, you want to come stay for a month?
You're like, who wants to help?
Can I go take a bath? Like, can I go take a shower? Can I wash my hair, please? Can I eat a meal?
Yeah. I think it's also important in this like specific situation with having a baby is like talking to your partner before you have the baby and like letting them know like, hey, this is really where I'm going to need you to step up. Like, I'm going to need you to remind me to eat, or just actually bring me a sandwich.
Exactly.
And like help me through. There was like, we didn't do that really. I mean, I didn't know what I was getting into when I was pregnant with my first. And then all these things started happening after. And I'm like, it's like Chris just gets to leave and go to work. And like, this is like, I still need help. Like what is happening? So with our second beforehand, I was like, hey, like, I really need, like, there's times where I might just be nursing. If you're making yourself lunch, go ahead and just make me a sandwich too. Or if you're getting a snack for the kids, can you just bring me a snack over here too?
Exactly.
Like,
when you're breastfeeding, it's almost like I don't know about you, but I didn't have an appetite. And so I'd forget to eat and then I'd feel miserable. And it was like, oh my gosh, I didn't eat anything all day today.
Yeah.
And
your body needs like double the nutrients.
exactly. So it's like, you just need help. Remember, like, can you take care of me as you're taking care of yourself? Like, help me.
Yeah. And I think like we've had a few friends who've recently had babies, and like other friends have set up meal trains.
Yes.
And even for like 3 months, like, so maybe they're not getting it every night. They have it like set it for like 2 nights a week, but it's like for over the course of 3 months. So there's just like constantly nights where food is getting delivered.
That's an awesome thing to
Yeah. That, I mean, I think even setting up like a grocery delivery for friends. I remember when one of my friends had a baby, they like were in the hospital for a little while, got home, I came over to visit, and I just stocked their fridge with groceries. Because I was like, you guys are not in the mindset of like, we need to go to the store.
You're in reaction mode at that point.
Right.
Yeah.
I think like coming over, being a friend that just like offers to come over and like, hey, like, let me do your dishes. Can I throw a load of laundry for you? Here, I'll take the baby. You go take a shower. You know what I mean? And then I feel like everybody knows their friends a certain way, but just at least offering.
For sure.
And then to this person that's like, I'm self-sufficient. Like, I don't need the help. Accept the help. Like,
Yes.
you will be better for like that fresh shower, for that little nap, for that load of laundry you didn't have to do. It's going to like calm you.
Yes.
You're going to be a better mom, a better spouse if you accept the help. It's hard to
Very
do.
hard. Mm-hmm.
And I feel like I learned in my life to like accept help, and that it was okay. Like, you don't have to do it all. You know what I mean? I feel like we're so wired, especially in this day and age, of like, I will be the best mom. I will have the best career. I will be the best wife. I'll do all the things.
And the thought about like, you think people can do it all. How do you do it all?
Yeah.
Not by myself.
Right. Absolutely. Like,
Yeah.
no. You know, I
Yeah.
mean, so I think it's just you kind of getting over that mindset that it's like, you're not a weak person because you're accepting help. It's actually going to make you a better person because you will be like, your cup will be filled.
Right. Exactly. I loved this question. This was fun for me. What needs to be in a guest bedroom to make the guest feel at home?
Okay, this is a great question because I actually literally just had this thought. I walked into our guest bedroom yesterday, and we've got some friends coming next weekend to stay with us. And I was kind of looking around, and I was like, there's a few things I need to like do to get this in shape for like guests to come. But I was like, I feel like it's missing like a something, like a personal touch. Like what, like I know some people have like little gifts or something. I mean, you tell us. I feel like you've got some ideas.
Well, I think this is just honestly not even from like having the passion of doing like home decor. It's from just being a guest. You know, if there is a bathroom, making sure that there's things that are accessible. I'm actually setting up for somebody to house sit for us next week. And I'm like, enough clean towels so they don't have to wash anything. All of the body products, even if it's just travel size that you have in the shower for them, making sure that they're, sufficient bedding. So not everybody sleeps the same. So making sure that there is something that keeps somebody warm, and there's also something that keeps some, people cool. Like you have sheets, you have a flat sheet, you have like a cover, like a duvet, and then you have a blanket at the end of your bed. I think those items are perfect. Having several pillows to choose from, because again, not everybody sleeps the same.
Yeah.
Is there a fan option in there? Is there an option for, curtains to close and there to be darkness or light? Things like that.
Yeah. I know. I remember going to a friend's, and not like just going over to her house, and we were moving some stuff in her guest bedroom. And so I was like, oh, your guest room is so cute. And she had like a little photo frame that had like the Wi-Fi password on it.
Oh, that's great.
And it was just like sitting on the nightside table. And
I
was
think
like,
of that for vacation, but I didn't even think about that. Yeah.
Right? I know. That would have probably helped Maddie.
That's going to help me tonight when I get everything ready for Danny. So,
I think having towels set out. And it's funny because I feel like we have towels in our guest bathroom, like underneath the cabinet. And then right outside of our guest bedroom, we have another linen closet. and obviously I know there's more towels in there, but I'm like, no one else would know that, you know? So it's like making sure the underneath towels are like all stocked.
Yes.
Before, even though I'm like, oh, they're just right there if somebody needs more, but like, how would anybody know? I mean, your guests aren't going to be like, hopefully, like snooping around your closets.
Right. I think also maybe people do normally bring like their cell phone or their laptop, so you'll have the Wi-Fi, but maybe even possibly a TV for some sort of entertainment if they don't feel like they could go into the common space,
right?
You know, at a certain time they have something that can keep them, you know, busy. But yeah, just making it comfortable. Like, what do you need in your room to keep you comfortable at night? And just remembering that whenever you set up the guest
Totally.
space.
When we went to Austin a few weeks ago to visit some friends, they had these like cute little bags like for the girls, and then it was like kind of like a thank you note, like just like a note that was like, we're so excited to like show you around Austin, like thanks for coming, here's like a few of our favorite things. And it was like a little t-shirt that said Austin for the girls, and then like a hat for me, and I think like a t-shirt for Chris.
Yeah.
And obviously like you don't have to get a gift for like your guests, but I thought that was a really cute touch, like coming like an out of town guest,
Right,
giving them something to like remind them of the place that we just visited. And then I think like on the flip side, like as a guest coming into somebody's house for that trip, I brought them like a gift as well, just to say like, thank you for having us and hosting us. And we were here for 4 nights or 3 nights or whatever. So I think it's always nice to like bring something if you are staying with somebody as a guest, like bringing just, I don't know, like whatever it might be.
That you made a good point. Even if somebody is coming in from out of town, maybe even writing down like a list of things that you could do together. Like, here's some of the great things that, you know, we suggest around here. If there's something that you want to do, this is the list that, you know, we suggest. But yeah, no, I think just thinking of that's going to be their home for however long,
right?
And making sure that they are comfortable along their stay.
Another thing I think, I mean, obviously some of this is like, should be, you would think just like duh, but like making sure like all the toilet paper is stocked, and that there's like even more stocked, or like that there's tons of washcloths, or just almost like over prepare a bathroom, just because like you just never know. Like I always feel like that's super helpful.
Agree.
Okay, I feel like this is like kind of a sad one, but I feel like you've got some good advice on this one.
I've got some of this under my belt already.
Yes. Okay, this question was how to process losing a pet.
Yeah. It's tough. And this is coming from a huge animal lover, especially my dogs. I've had a lot of animals in my lifetime, and it's never easy. And especially if like you are in the thought process of like, they are my family. So I think that I honestly have learned to grieve because I've done it so much.
Yeah.
And it never gets easier. But I think just honestly having that memory of like, you got to spend that time with them. It's just like with a person, you know, think of the good times. And like, how are you going to remember them? I love talking about it now. I used to not talk about it, and like keeping it trapped in was just so tough.
Yeah.
So I actually met somebody at Kristen's shower, and she was like, I lost literally the love of my life, and I just wasn't ready for, you know, an animal, and I had to give myself a year. And then it finally was just like in my heart, like I am ready to move on. And I think that's the thing. Like for me, it was not to replace the animal, but like having something else to focus on and like give my love to, was like, I'm gonna get another puppy and like show, or dog, you know, and show them the love that like I'm missing out on, like giving to whatever, you know, this last pet was. So, and of course I take it to the extreme, which is so funny because I think it is actually the next question, but like I memorialized some of my dogs with tattoos. That's just how, like, part of the healing process for myself, but it's like to remember them. You know, like the dachshund on my foot is for Roscoe. He was literally always under my feet. That was what we always said. Oh, your little foot dog, he's like trailing you around right under your feet. everybody used to say that. And so I'm like, that's where I put it. So I can remember him.
Very applicable.
Yeah, exactly.
I know. I feel like there's no easy way. And everybody obviously grieves differently.
1000%.
There is somebody that I follow on Instagram, and her name is Hannah Estelle, or Estelle Hannah. It's her Instagram. And she is an artist, and she does like pet portraits. And so I think it's like for one of my friends, her dogs passed away, and I found an old picture of her dog and like had Hannah draw a picture of it and then like gave that to her. And it's like, okay, like that's like a way to remember, you know, and it's like they're always going to be with you in your heart.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not easy, that's for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
I feel like I like dread the day that like Birdie like is no longer with us.
Yeah.
Like I feel like it's going to be hard because she literally sleeps like on top of me every night. Like my 80-pound like bed buddy is like when she's not with me, I'm like, oh, something is missing. Like my like back support is gone.
Yes.
You know, so I can't imagine what that's going to be like someday, but I'm like, I'm just not going to think about it until the time comes.
Yeah, don't worry about it till it gets here. Yeah. Yeah. Indy, one of my she was actually my first golden retriever. She's the one that made like me love the breed. She was 3 when she passed away. So it was very, very hard for me, but I think she was like my soulmate. I know that sounds so crazy probably to a lot of people, but I'm going to own it. She was literally my soulmate. And so that was the hardest one for me.
Sweet.
Yeah. But I think just, again, I got another golden, not shortly thereafter, but I did get another golden because I was like, that's literally the only thing I can think to do to just put that love towards another animal. And like, yeah, it's still hard, but I felt like the healing process was a lot easier. So,
Yeah, totally. So tough.
So this person wanted to know, how did you decide where to put your tattoos? Because they were saying they're tasteful.
Well, thank you. I feel like for me, I have 11 tattoos, for those of you that don't know that. Not all of them are like visible. And that was kind of the thing that I wanted to do. I wanted them to all be in places like if they needed to be hidden, I could hide it. And they are all like for me, you know, like they have like, each of them has like a special meaning for me. So I kind of put them like where I would remember kind of what it is. I feel like a lot of them are on my arms, and kind of on the inside of my arms or on like the back of my elbows. And that's just like places I feel like if I'm writing or looking down or like that, I just remember them or think about them, you know? I think like tattoos, in my opinion, they're like such personal things.
Yeah.
So somebody might be like, oh, like my calf is like where I need this to go because like for whatever reason, this is super personal for me. And like, that's why you might see somebody with a calf tattoo and be like, that would never do that.
Right.
You know, whereas I feel like I like all of mine are very dainty and like very specific, but I think it just is kind of like very personal. And for me, I wanted to be able to hide it if I needed to. But then I also wanted them to just be like small reminders throughout the day. Right. When I noticed them, it was like, yes, that like, it's like the reminder is what I wanted always.
Exactly. I started mine out with not thinking about that. My very first one was like, I want to hide it where nobody can see it except me because it has so much meaning. And it was when Chinese symbols were in, guys.
Good times.
Shows my age. But I had it on my like lower hip. And I was like, even if I wore a bikini, it would be covered, you know, my parents won't see. And then it was just kind of like free for all. I had one put on my back, which was, it's fine. That could be covered if I wanted it to. And then I was like, let's get some stars for me, Robert and Maddie. And that's really not even what it was for. So I'm like, I have these stars that I regret now on my feet. You know, there's a couple of them. I've had 3 cover-ups. Yeah, 3 cover-ups. And, you know, because I'm like, regretted that YOLO moment.
Yeah.
you know,
you're like, huh. So. I will say, so the best advice I got about getting tattoos was from my dad, because he was like, I told him, I was like, oh, when I turn 18, I want to get a tattoo. And he was like, I don't know. Like, why? You know, I mean, I don't think anybody in my family really had tattoos before. And he was like, well, how about this? Like, once you turn 18, if there's something that you want, think about it for a year. And if you still want the tattoo in a year, get it. Yeah. Like, you've thought about it, something that means something to you, like, then you can say, like, this is genuinely something you really want. So I was like, okay, that's fair. And I've just really respected my dad. So I was like, you know what I mean? I feel like some people would be like, great, well, I'm 18, so like I'm going to the tattoo parlor right now.
Right.
But for whatever reason, I took that advice. And then I kind of applied that to a lot of my other tattoos. Maybe not like giving it a year's worth of thought, but giving it a lot of thought.
Yeah.
And like putting a time frame on it. And then going to get it. And so then it's, I mean, I feel like there's still a few that I'm like looking back, like, you know, years later, I'm like, does that still mean what it meant when I thought about it for a year?
Exactly.
But I mean, that's just kind of like the part of getting a tattoo.
Like, it's just my story, guys.
Yeah.
Like, it's just part of the story. I do feel like I have gotten a lot more intentional about when I get and what I get tattoos of. But I was given that advice too, and I waited till I was 19 and a half, I think, before I got my first one, and I was still so scared because my parents were like, no. And here they are.
Yeah.
They have tattoos now. But that was something. I wanted a fairy for years, and I was so glad I waited that year, because I was like, why would I put a fairy on my body?
Instead, you went Chinese.
It was something
symbol.
my mom drew. There was a reason for it. She actually had a mural on my wall of a fairy and I literally kept it for
really
like
sweet.
a decade. And I was like, I want that. Yeah, I'm so glad. Stars are great compared to that. So we'll take that. But yeah, just being very intentional, because I mean, it is forever, and a lot of things can't be covered or removed. And yeah, that's what I've told the girls too. And I actually was shocked. Madison wanted a tattoo for her birthday, and she's been very patient, because I told her, I was like, you're gonna have to wait till after vacation, the sun, you know, all of that. You need to protect it. So you're gonna do it right. And I was like, what do you want? Because I'm like, because she can go do it if she wants. Right. You know what I mean? I'm like, what do you want? I would rather go with you to somebody I trust. And she's like, I want a heart, just so I can remember, you know, to be kind and be a good person. And then she was like, and I want my last name. I was like, okay. I mean, those are good.
Right.
You know, like, I can get behind that. So I'm like, hopefully they've learned from me.
That is like every parent's hope, you know? It's like, ugh.
Exactly.
Okay, we've got one more question. We saved the deep question till the end, and we actually have a few more that we're going to cover in a future advice column podcast episode. So I hope you guys have really enjoyed this, because I feel like this has been some kind of fun conversation back and forth for us. So the last question is, a couple in their 30s talked briefly about their viewpoints on having children before they got married. Now the wife questions if and when they should have children based on the husband's beliefs on raising children, and that he believes it should be just them for a while without children. He has an older mindset on children, for example, not going out to eat a lot, not doing fun things, not vacationing with children, based on how he was raised. Any advice on if they should have children or what to start with? It's kind of like, I feel like a lot.
There is. I think that for other people to think about before they get married, I want to start there.
Agree.
That conversation should be had.
Yes.
And not just like touched on.
I have a friend who they have since been divorced. When they got married, she kind of always said, like, I don't want kids. And he kind of was like, okay, I do, but like maybe she'll change her mind once we actually like get married and all of our friends are having kids. She did not change her mind.
Yeah.
And he was like, I really want to have a family. Like, I thought this was, you know, I mean, that is what ended up like causing their divorce. And so I think like being very clear when you are dating somebody and it's like leading to these like future conversations on marriage and what that looks like and how you want to raise family.
Yeah.
I think another like important thing we discussed in our premarital counseling was like how we want to raise kids and how we want to have a family. We both came from different religious backgrounds, you know? And so in my mind, I was like, well, we're going to raise them the way I was raised.
Right.
And he's like, we're going to raise them the way I was raised, you know? And I'm like, no, we're not, you know? I mean, it was like, there had to be some give and like some tough conversations that was like, is this going to like be the right thing for like me in the long run?
Right.
You know?
Yeah. And don't expect that you're going to be able to change somebody.
Right.
I mean, maybe things will transpire in the future, but do not expect that to be the situation, especially like in your friend's case. Like, how many times have we heard of that happening? Oh, well, I just thought they would change their mind later into the relationship. And it's like, some people are being very honest whenever they say stuff like that.
Totally. And on the other hand, I have another friend who like, they were both like okay with not having kids. Like they were kind of like, I just don't know if that's going to be for us. And he sort of maybe wanted kids, but they really were very clear on the same page. Like, we don't really want kids. And then they have changed their mind and actually have a son now. But it was like, they were not going into it like trying to change the other person. It was like, we are like a team and very clear on this. And if that changes,
like they grew into that
exactly
decision later. Yeah.
So I think like the first point I mean, when I first read this question, I was like, I feel like they need to bring in like a counselor.
Exactly.
Or have some like open conversations with some people they really trust just to get them thinking. I think maybe talking to him a little bit more on like how he was raised, because it sounds like maybe he saw his family like not doing all these things and their excuse was because they had kids. When that doesn't necessarily have to be how, like, he can break the mold, but there's probably a lot more underneath that needs to be discovered.
Yeah. Because I think there are two different type of people. Like, I'm going to raise my kids the way that I was raised because I feel like I know how that worked, and this is what the outcome was. And then there are other people that are like, I know how I was raised, and it doesn't necessarily mean that it was wrong, but I want to do something different, and this is how I'm going to parent. So maybe even asking him, like, was your childhood happy?
Right. Do you want to like redo that?
Exactly.
Or are you not wanting to have kids because you didn't like that?
Right.
So even maybe like taking it back a step further beyond bringing like a counselor in, maybe just her going to him and like with a list of questions and just kind of being like, hey, I want to have like, this might get uncomfortable. This might be like a hard conversation to have, but like, can you please give me an hour that we can just discuss some of this just so I can be like hyper aware of like what your feelings are. And then we can like figure out where we're going to go from here. Yeah. I mean, I guess the question on like any advice if they should have children, that's going to be like something that you guys decide.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, we're both moms and love being moms. So I feel like we're like, yes, have children. Like they're amazing, but you're ultimately going to have to be the one to make that decision. I think starting with having those like very intentional conversations and then bringing somebody in to kind of really facilitate them and kind of try to get to like the root of the problem as to like maybe why he's not interested in it. And then to those of you who are maybe not married yet, who are starting to think about this type of thing, really having those conversations beforehand to make sure like that your values and like future viewpoints are going to like line up.
Yeah. It goes back to the very first question that we had, like communication.
Yeah.
You've got to have that before you go into a marriage.
Right.
You know, it needs to start off with very strong communication.
Yeah. Well, this has been a fun episode.
It has been. We have so many more that are sitting here. So we're like, we have enough for episode 2. So
I know.
We're gonna do it here in the next couple of weeks. So stay tuned for that.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate you guys being here. And as always, thank you so much for choosing to download and listen to Life with Loverly. I know there's so many podcasts out there, so we really appreciate you guys pressing play on ours. And we will talk to you soon.